Welcome to the Self-Love Summit. I'm Mia Saenz Whitmore, known as the Passion Muse, and with me this segment is Lorraine Cohen. Welcome, Lorraine.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Mia.
I'm really grateful that you're here. Before we get into our segment here on helping people understand another aspect of self-love and how to create it within themselves, I'd like you to share your story of from where it began, which could be a very long time ago, to how you got to where you are right now on the subject that we're going to talk about, forgiveness, and the work that you do so that people understand and they know that they have a loving soul that they can go to for help.
Thank you so much. And you're right, it is a very long story because it tracks back several decades. And yet there's a synchronicity, there's a common thread that really has been a part of even coming to this place that I'm in now, especially talking about forgiveness. And it was 1981 and my mother died. It was a very catalytic time in my life because we were very close, and that loss was a very painful one, as it is for many people. It caused me to look very deeply inside of myself and to question my life. And around that time, I experienced what I can only describe as a spiritual earthquake. I had a sense of standing in rubble while I felt incredibly lost, and I realized for the first time that I was so full of crap and that I was a stranger to myself, and it was a terrifying experience. And as I am so blessed by the gift that my mother's death brought to my life, because it brought me on this miraculous spiritual journey of recovering myself. And it's been a painful one, an exhilarating one, a liberating one, a surprising one. Had I known then what I know now, I don't know if I would have hit the ground running in the other direction, you know. Right. So I'm grateful for getting it in bite-sized pieces. And what has been a real gift, additionally, from just that waking up point, has been tracking back a number of awarenesses that has tied into my mother. There was a period of time when my mother came to me when I was in my late 20s, and she had disclosed to me that she didn't love my father anymore. And she was in despair. And for my mother to even disclose something like that, because, you know, in their generation, they didn't talk.
Right.
So there I was in my late 20s without any words to comfort her. And I essentially said to her that it was too late because she couldn't change some of his habits. He was a good man. He was not a cruel man, but she just didn't love him anymore. My father adored her. And several years later, after my mother resigned herself to stay in the marriage, because there was an interdependency, my mother created leukemia, and a few years after that, my mother died at 66 years old. And I never realized until many years later how much of a judgment I had placed on myself, that I felt that I had abandoned her, that I should have helped her, and that at my mother's time of need, I was not there. And that guilt and that unforgiveness that I held in my heart impacted all areas of my life, my business, my health. I mean, it enhanced my business, certainly, because so much of the work that I do with people is helping them to articulate their heart, able to comfort themselves, to be able to get to the heart of what's going on. So there was a blessing in that. I didn't realize the extent of anger and resentments that I held towards myself for not being who she needed me to be. And even after 20 plus years of being on this journey, it's still unraveling, Mia, of pieces still coming to bear, And I'm grateful for the awarenesses and realizing that there is no done. It's just about going deeper, and that the forgiveness work is critical to be able to open your heart and to move into these next phases of awakening and enlightenment that the world is moving towards.
Right. That's really beautiful. And one thing that people have to realize in self-love, in any aspect of our life, and you said it, was these bite-sized pieces. Every space, every place, every step that we take is perfect for our own experience, for your own experience. Because otherwise we would not be exactly where we are. We are exactly where we're supposed to be. So many people say, oh, I need to move faster. I need to slow down. Yes, in a way, if it's regarding work and that type of stuff, but if it's in regarding your self-growth, you're exactly where you're supposed to be. So cherish and honor that in yourself so that you can move forward in a positive fashion.
That is such an important point, because we have this idea in our mind about what the journey is supposed to look like, where we're supposed to be. We have all these stories about it,
yes,
which doesn't give us permission to be where we're at. And what I have repeatedly found is that the more I try to push the process, the more exhausted and the more resistance I create. There's an energy about this journey, and it's about partnering with this energy and allowing it to take you, which is unusual for those of us who like to feel that we have some illusion of control, which is a riot. And when we find this rhythm and this feeling of safety, because there's a safety piece, I can be safe in not knowing. Yes. I can be safe in trusting this process. And the way that we develop that is by having experiences and seeing, hey, I'm okay. It worked out well. I learned some things. May not have taken the form that I would have liked, and to be able to see it from a higher perspective with gratitude and know that there is more at work and it's not all on us to figure it out.
Right. It's a surrendering process.
That's not an easy one.
No, but once you start to feel it and you can experience it at times and you feel the grace of the divine taking over through you, then you can learn to trust. But you're right, it's not an easy one because we have to recognize what it feels like and how amazing it is. It's that leap of faith. It's that leap of faith. I've come to the process, or the point, that most of my processes are that leap of faith of just to surrender, because I know that the actual end result will be the most beautiful one for me. Whether I have to learn a huge lesson or whatever it is, it's right for me. So have no fear.
Or if you're going to have fear, have the fear. Have everything that you're feeling. Don't
You do live with it, right.
anything. Have a meltdown. Fall apart. Because sometimes that's exactly what needs to happen, so that that last piece of resistance that is trying to hold on, that is blocking the next breakthrough.
Yes.
And it's so fast and it's automatic. And I say this to you because this is where my learning edge is right now. I feel myself definitely dancing in that, and I can feel when the resistance comes up in my body. Right. And it's so fast and it's so natural that you don't even realize that you're doing it, and it feels at times very dangerous and very terrifying. That's what these leaps of faith are about.
Right. And it's also actually honoring yourself. I do this. I know exactly what you're talking about because I do this with my clients. I'll tell them whether it's an hour, whether it's a day, whether it's 2 days, take the time, but set it aside that you know, I will honor this and I will feel it because that's part of the experiential, and I will get through it, but I will move on. As soon as that time is up, I'm ready to clear it. If it's the death of a family member, I've worked with people that, of course you're not going to heal it in an hour or a day or two, but don't let it go on for months and months and months, because you can still love them. Bring in the memories, the joy, the peace, and the harmony within your being. They're right there with you always. So allow a certain amount of time.
You just said something very important, Mia, that I want to highlight, and that is, in any process where we're getting in touch with our heart, that we stay with whatever feeling is happening. We really let it play full out.
Right.
Without any resistance whatsoever, without any judgments. The place where we can get stuck is in the story. Mm-hmm. Once we get into the story and the mental intellectualizing and the analyzing and the retelling in our head, we can pull out of the emotion, and we need to go back into the heart. Mm-hmm. So I say to my clients, you don't need the story and you don't need to know anything in order to feel. Just as something is coming up and you become aware of it, rest into it. Mm-hmm. Breathe into it. Let it completely take you over. And when you offer no resistance to anything, it will ultimately fall apart. It's like if you continue to throw logs on a fire, the flame is going to keep going. But if you do nothing, it will eventually burn out, which is not what we typically do. We rush in with some sort of a technique. We start to calm ourselves down. And as soon as we do that, we're creating resistance and we are not working through something. Mm-hmm. This is what people really need to understand. Mm-hmm. It's not about getting rid of anything. It's about learning how to be totally present with whatever you're feeling, right, to embrace it completely, to let it completely be there, and it on its own will fall apart, and that's when the grace comes in. It's a beautiful process.
It is a beautiful process. It is. And to honor that and say, it's okay. It's okay. So, you also said, which we had wanted to talk about, was going from your head to your heart. So let's talk about that. You bring us into that, okay? Dropping from your head to your heart is so important. Everybody lives in their head, and they need to understand what it's like to live in your heart.
Yeah. One of the things that I encourage my clients to do during the course of the day is to just stop for a moment and just breathe and to turn their attention inwards, just to start to notice how their body is feeling.
Yes.
Notice where they're having any sensations, as if they were going to do a scan around their body, just becoming very present. Because when we're in all of this massive doing, we're so not in our bodies. Mm-hmm. So even beginning to practice that several minutes throughout the day and just being here in this moment. Mm-hmm. And as you become aware of having some feelings, and you don't even need to know what that feeling is. We don't need to label it, oh, I'm feeling sad or I'm feeling angry. Just be in the presence of the energy, however long you can, and just notice how you are when you become aware of something. Mm-hmm. Notice how your body is feeling. It's not unusual when we feel agitated that we start feeling a lot of stress around the neck and the shoulders. We start pacing. We start moving around. So the better that you get to know yourself by taking those moments to be home, the more you're going to start to get in touch with feelings. And here's also something else that I encourage my clients to do. And I got to tell you, be careful what you pray for, okay?
What you asked for, right.
I have really come to understand that there's a lot of things that I can talk about brilliantly, and I don't know how to do it. Like surrender. I could have a whole conversation, be very intellectual, give you all the pros and cons about surrender, and realize I don't know how to do that. I don't really know how to let go. So when you go into that place of connection with the divine and you ask for anything that you don't know how to do, show me how to do this.
Right.
Teach me how to surrender. And the reason why I say be aware of what you pray for, the universe in its brilliance will conspire in your favor to bring you the exact experiences that will break you open in a way that will guarantee you the greatest amount of success. And you may not like the forms that it comes up, but it will always come in a form that you are capable of walking through. And that's what you have to trust. And you don't have to do it alone.
Exactly. You know, another thing that you brought up that I've been talking on different shows with other people, not on this summit, so that's why I'm excited that you brought it up, is the understanding. There are so many people who read and are book knowledgeable about spirituality, but they can't live it in their heart and their being, and they can't push it back out to the world. So here is a tip that she just gave us. It's perfect. In your prayerful state, because you know how to do this. You know how to quiet your mind through meditation and talk to the divine instead of begging and pleading. When you do that, ask for guidance. Ask to feel it, and you will. You'll bring it into a different stage through your being, and you can push it out and give it to the world that you're wanting to do. The people who are more analytical and brain and not dropping into their heart as much. That's a very good technique and a very good, I'm so glad that you brought that up, because I've been baffled for a couple years at how people could be so book knowledgeable. Of course, they read many books about spirituality and all this, and loving yourself and moving forward and how to manifest, but yet they're not able to actually accomplish it because they know the process, but they're not feeling it, which is how we're dropping into our soul, into our heart, into our being, into our spirituality, and then living it in our being and pushing it back out to the universe.
Yeah.
So.
And also pay attention to the things that touch your heart. Mm-hmm. Like, it could be your children, or it could be your animals, or it could be something in nature. And notice when something does really bring up a feeling, whether it's a sense of joy or, I've been a crier all my life. Things touch me deeply, and of course, as I've continued on my journey, there is a greater sensitivity that begins to develop over time. I would watch the coffee commercials during the holidays, and the son would come home, and the parents would come down, and they would be so happy because the son was home, and I would burst into tears. Why? Because the subject for me was about love.
Yes,
love
exactly.
touches my heart.
Right, exactly. And also, as you become more spiritually and divinely aligned, your clarity opens up. And that's what part of the summit is all about, is connecting to your clarity and finding and living that love. Eckhart Tolle talks about being in the moment now. And when we get and live, as Lorraine and I are sharing with you, when you live in the moment now, you do sometimes, and don't be afraid, because all of a sudden, because we're living in our senses, our eyes, our touch, our smell, we're more alert, more attuned, they're more defined. So something looking at a child, may touch you so deeply that all of a sudden you're crying and you're like, oh, I'm so overwhelmed, and you feel the power of now. You feel that explosion of joy and beauty, and you will tear up, and it's okay. It's absolutely okay. Dry your tears, embrace and love that feeling, because you're going to want to feel the glory of beauty all the time.
Yeah. Without apologies. Without saying, I'm sorry.
Oh, of course. Right.
Because being alive, being fully alive, is feeling the full scope of feelings.
Yes.
Feelings aren't good or bad, they're just feelings. And we came into this life to feel. Mm-hmm. And if we're blocking any feelings, we're blocking all feelings.
Mm-hmm. And be excited and proud of it, because it's a beautiful, beautiful experience and journey to feel that. Nothing to be proud of, just wow, how exciting. And people that don't understand, you understand that you've just experienced something so magnificent, and honor that. And it's all about, self-love is all about honoring you. You can't honor somebody else until you truly know how to honor your whole being and who you are. You do a lot of work on forgiveness, so I'd like to go there next, because that is a perfect follow-up to what we're talking about here.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, let's talk about the relationship between forgiveness and unforgiveness, because the depth is, as we were talking right before we turned on the cameras on set here, the depth is amazing. I had a friend that I mentioned to you when we were talking. I was like, wow, that really touched me. I think that I truly understand this now. I had a male friend a couple years back who we weren't getting along. We had been seeing each other, and then he came back into my life and said, I forgive you. But he didn't forgive me. And so he wasn't healed, and our relationship wasn't healed. And now we don't even have a friendship. And so the point is he wasn't being fair to himself, and he wasn't being fair to me. I like that you brought that up, because when you don't forgive, there is a difference. There's a difference to your being. It's not an honesty to yourself. But I want each of you to understand that don't just give words. Don't just spout the words. Feel it in your heart. And if you can't forgive somebody, work on it for you. Lorraine's going to share how she works with her clients on it. And I'd like to share a little aspect of something that I do that's, I'm sure, different, but in the same vein. And then we'll go on from there.
You know, what I'm feeling prompted to bring in, just to expand this conversation, is I'm often asked, how do I know if I've forgiven someone? Mm-hmm. And what I have found consistently is that when you no longer feel any kind of a negative charge when you think about somebody, when you could actually kiss their feet, mm-hmm. and wish them well and love them, it's really about coming to peace inside of your heart. It doesn't mean that whatever you had a reaction to was absolutely okay, and that's one of the places I see people struggle. I don't want to forgive somebody because what happened wasn't okay. So that's all right. But the forgiveness is really about coming to peace inside of yourself so that the charge is no longer there. And that comes from a place of compassion and understanding that we don't always show up in the best light. We are the product of our experiences. We're not always at our best. We screw up. We betray each other. We're not always coming from our best selves. And this is where we are in the world right now, is emerging from all of those kinds of painful experiences and identities. Mm-hmm. And it's with a compassionate heart that we can begin to move into the space of love and healing. But the person that we end up being the most upset with is us. Mm-hmm. Somehow or another, we take on some responsibility. I should have known. I should have been smarter. I should have done this. If only I had done that. And even though we can come to what we perceive is an acceptance of another person, I truly believe that if we cannot forgive ourselves, we can't really forgive anybody else.
Exactly.
So it really is an inside-out thing. Mm-hmm. So what I encourage people to really ask themselves is, what is it costing them to stay in a place of resentment? Because there's always a secondary gain. We get something from that. I get to stay in righteous indignation. I get to stay in my victim. And in exploring some of the secondary gains, to do it with a great deal of compassion, without judgment, because we're learning how to be with each other in different ways. And so we haven't done it perfectly either. So if you can go into this journey with the curiosity of a child and the courage of a lion, to go the distance, then you can really approach things from a higher perspective.
Yes.
So we start there's an exercise that I've given my clients. I actually lead a Pathways to Awakening program. It's a series of 4-week mini journeys through forgiveness, self-love, faith and trust, courage, divine destiny, and grace. And it's a very powerful, potent program. So one of the exercises that I gave to people was, it's a mirror exercise for them to get up in the morning and to look at themselves in the mirror and to say their name out loud and to start by saying, I love you. So it could be me.
I do that too.
Of course. Beautiful.
In my 6-week program.
And then, after doing that for several minutes, say, Mia, I forgive you. And just notice how you feel when you say that. It may feel uncomfortable. You may start to laugh. You might not be able to do that. You start from a place of willingness. So if you can't say, I love you, you start with, I am willing to love myself. I'm willing to grow into loving myself. And that willingness is a great way because it shows that, okay, I'm not there yet. I'm at an earlier point, and this is something that I am wanting. Then invite that spiritual connection to be your guide, to help you to walk through this particular pathway so that you come into a greater heart opening, not only for yourself, but also for other people. There's also another exercise which is wonderful where you can work with 3 circles, and it's kind of like a bullseye. At the center circle, you can put a heart, and these are all the people that are close to your heart. And then around that, put the people that you have forgiven, and the circle around that is people that you are wanting to forgive, and that the outermost circle is the people or qualities that you consider to be unforgivable. And it allows you to get very real and honest.
Right.
And also look at, again, some of the qualities that you may see that's unforgivable in others, you may notice is unforgivable about yourself. It's an invitation to soften the heart and to, I like to say to my clients, imagine if you could see yourself through the eyes of God, what would love say? What would love think? What would love do? And when we just begin to entertain that idea, miracles happen.
You have my mind spinning. First of all, I love this because we're so similar here in our work, and it's glorious. Thank you. Thank you. I honor that in you. Thank you. Secondly, when you said, what would God see? And I imagined my newborn children. So anyone who's a parent out there, remember what it was like when you were holding your child and just in total awe, protection, love, everything that was so beautiful, innocence. That's how God sees us. That's how God sees us. Plus, God sees us with our intelligence as a grown, knowing all. So there's so much vastness there that's truly amazing. So if those of you who say, I can't imagine how God sees me, that's how God sees you. Think about that. And if you don't have children, think about your new kitten or puppy and put it in the aspect, so that you can start to feel in your heart what that would feel like. Also, I just wanted to also share briefly the mirror experience. Don't be surprised if you get, as Lorraine was saying, negativity. The first time I did mine, I came from a very, what looked like a perfect childhood, but on the inside it was not. Highly dysfunctional. I was beaten a lot and locked in closets. Very, not a pretty sight. But the thing is it brought me to where I am today to help others. And that's what I love. That's the journey that I'm on, is to help others. But when I was 25, I looked in the mirror. This was 25 years ago, almost. I looked in the mirror and I said, because I decided to do this work for myself, I love you. And instantly I started crying and I said, no, I don't. I hate you. So don't be surprised if there's negativity. Write it down in your journal and go straight to someone who you can talk to. Email Lorraine, email me. We're happy to take a step forward and talk with you, because you will get to the point where our clients, actually, I have them write me a year later and say, I saw myself naked in the mirror and I'm heavier than I've ever been in my life and I'm gorgeous. Because they're seeing their divine beauty the way God sees them. We both align our clients to the divine. And so that's truly how it is. It's beautiful.
Is really important. And I'm so touched by your being touched by this conversation, which is a beautiful thing. I'm usually the one who's crying. For those listening who may find some of what we're talking about difficult, it's not your fault. Not your fault. What we are experiencing as humanity, the world has been suffering from a lack of self-love for centuries. And it's been handed down for so long. And we are the product of not only our experiences and cultural conditioning, but also the lineage from our own families. So as you have the courage and the willingness to be a pioneer and blaze a new trail for yourself and for future generations, please know that it will also go backwards. And
in healing the past.
It will backwards in healing the past, even through your own lineage. There is so much power in healing that we only begin to understand. So when you have the courage to do that, you also are a model for other people to give them the courage to do that for themselves, and together we will transform the world.
Absolutely.
And we do that through love.
And it starts with self. That's why this is a self-love summit. And the forgiveness comes for us. We've done nothing wrong. Nobody has done anything wrong. It is the way it is. And if we start to look at things through color instead of black and white, that's where the beauty lies. That's where the connection to the divine lies. And it's incredibly fabulous. I wanted to just throw in another quick little forgiveness exercise before Lorraine takes us through an experiential, and then we finish up the segment, because these go by really fast. So something that I created about, I believe, exactly 4 years ago was after I had been in a marriage my whole life, and I was just a baby when I met my husband. I was 17 and married him when I was 18 and he was older. And when I left our marriage, as you'll see during the summit, you'll hear different experiences throughout my life, but how I physically changed my body. I lost weight because I'd gained weight to keep men away, and then I became strong and confident. After I fell in love as an adult for the first time, that I consider the first time as an adult since I fell in love with my husband at 17, the man that I fell in love with was married but unhappy, and decided to go back once he was finally happy because he had met me and we were laughing and he was experiencing joy that he hadn't experienced in a long time, and then bringing that every time he'd see his wife. And they were on their way to a divorce, so that's why I was in the relationship. But they rebuilt their marriage. The most beautiful thing. But I had to realize the first man that I loved, that I thought, and I still honor that relationship from way back then, I wrote a thank you note to him, which is so healing, and I have my clients do it. It's, thank you for teaching me how to love more. My laughter changed to music. I see myself as glorious and happy. I thought of all the amazing things that he brought into my life.
Beautiful.
And I sent that to him. And it took him a couple weeks to process it. And he wrote me back and he said, thank you. You will always be my friend. And things are working out wonderful for my wife and I. And I wrote him back and I said, I'm so happy for you. I want you to be happy, and this is exactly your road. So with my clients, I have them write when their heart is broken, especially in a relationship, because I'm also a relationship coach, that you do this thank you note of, thank you, you've blessed my life. And some people are not there yet to understand on the receiving end the amazement. I've sent just a few in my life because I started 4 years ago doing, not being married and being in relationships. But it's a beautiful thing for your heart to heal. Your heart will heal fast, and their heart will heal. And there will be I refuse to hate and not to love people that I have loved. Especially men in my life that I've been in relationships with. I absolutely refuse. I'm divorced, but I am very close friends still with my ex-husband, and with the couple of men that I've been with before. I am in my beautiful relationship now. I may not talk to him on a daily basis, but we're still in sweet connection, because if you love somebody, yes, the dynamics change, but love is love. And so how can you then go from love to hate? That's the forgiveness part that needs to be healed in the heart. That's the beauty, because there won't be any hatred when there's forgiveness on your part and on their part for them.
There's a couple of things that was really sparked by what you said, and momentarily it's completely flown out of my head.
That's right.
I think that one of the things that I tell my clients all the time is, if you can look at every situation from the perspective of every person and situation is in service to your own healing and your growth, and to realize that nothing is ever wasted, and when you can step out of the personalizing, and again, I come back to saying, when you look at it from that higher perspective or that broader perspective, and see all the ways it is of service to you. Maybe it's calling you to find your voice, or to love yourself more, or to set a boundary, or to look at how you are disrespecting yourself, what you are tolerating, or it could be a myriad of things. It might be that that relationship was a door opening for you, and when it didn't continue, it caused you to take an action that you might not have taken while you were in the relationship. I mean, there's so many different blessings, and it's not unusual when you're in the throes of something that you can't see one blessing at all, and that's okay, because we are human beings and we do have reactions. And when you can step back at whatever point, or maybe in the middle, it's wonderful if you can do that, and really see how it is in service to you, then you will never feel victimized by anyone or anything.
Right.
And the other thing that I have found is incredibly powerful about that is I have come back a few times. I'm a believer in making amends. To me, it's an integrity piece. If I feel that I've messed up, even if the other person doesn't feel it, if I feel that I've messed up, I have to clean it up. So have the chops to go back and apologize to somebody if you feel that that's restorative for you, to come back into a place of alignment and ask that person to forgive you.
And hopefully, and explain to them too, like Lorraine was saying, don't just say the words. If you can't forgive me, then okay, that's your business. But realize for me, say I'm the person, and I'm saying to Lorraine, I'm terribly sorry I did X, Y, and Z. My heart really hurts, and will you please forgive me?
Yes.
Thank you. I don't want Lorraine to just say, I forgive you, and then go about her merry way, and next time she sees me say to, her girlfriends, I'm just saying this seems very high schoolish, but seriously, oh, there's so-and-so, she did blah, That's not healing. What's healing is Lorraine coming up to me, and perhaps because we're very close, give me a hug then and say, how are you? It's so good to see you. I wish you well.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Mean it, not the holding on to the anger and the resentment or whatever it is. Words are authentically beautiful. They go out to the universe and they come around. They reverberate out, they reverberate back. Why do you think we breathe? Out and in. Why do you think the ocean goes out and in? We're all in a movement cycle. The whole universe goes out and in. It all moves. So you don't want to put out what you're going to have brought back to you. You want to put out what you want back. So if you want beauty, love, healing, forgiveness, you're going to feel it, know it, believe it, and put it out. And then that's what you want to come back to you. If it does not come back by that specific person, that's not your problem. It's none of my business what they think of me. I know that there are a lot of people out there now talking like this, and it comes from Don Miguel Ruiz's book, The Four Agreements. It's just a whole way of looking at the universe, our lives. We are part of the universe, aren't we, Lorraine?
I think that one of the questions for a person to ask themselves is, in looking at the kind of person that they want to be, if you want to live an authentic life, then you need to not lie to yourself.
Yes.
And it comes back to thine own self be true. And you will always know, because of how you feel in your body, you'll feel a misalignment, and you'll know if you have a charge. And if you do, forgive yourself for that. And you can even start with the words, I forgive myself. And you'd be surprised during the course of your life how many times you will be invited to forgive yourself, because relationships always give us opportunities for forgiveness.
Right, right.
And be okay with that. Just really be in this space of becoming more loving, and the more that becomes the priority in your life, you will naturally evolve into that. Just be honest with yourself. Be okay with whatever's going on. If you're angry, be angry. Don't don't try to talk yourself out of it or tell yourself that you shouldn't feel that way, because you know what? You do. Mm-hmm. It is what it is. It doesn't matter whether you like it or not. Excuse me. It is what it is.
Right.
And that's part of living an authentic and loving life, is being true to yourself and telling yourself the truth. Because at the end of the day, you are the one that you've got to face. And if you don't like who you see, then there is no place to go where there's any peace.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. We are actually out of time. You had wanted to do an experiential, but you also did one with the mirror. Do you still want to do the other experiential, the pathway through forgiveness?
I would love to just pose those two questions if we could put that in, because they're so good.
They are, and we will be a few minutes over time, but that's all right. It's all part of being and sharing the authenticness. Okay, go ahead.
You know, I've shared a couple of processes as you have, so this is a very rich conversation. In my Pathways to Awakening Journey Through Forgiveness, there's a couple of questions that I pose to people, and these are one or two of those questions. Take a moment to just turn your attention inwards, maybe close your eyes, and just allow your attention to focus on something in your life that is causing you some upset, some distress. Maybe it's a decision that you made that is creating a hardship in your life where you're holding some resentment, some anger towards yourself. And you can pick something that's not heavily charged. Mm-hmm. And as your eyes are closed, I invite you to just rest into this question and just notice what comes up. What if the situation that you find yourself in was beautifully created so that you could get to know yourself really well and deepen your relationship with God? And what if this was the only form that was guaranteed to get your attention in a perfect way for you to reach that end? Could you forgive yourself?
That's beautiful.
And one more question is, and what if it was part of your life design to create this experience so that you, as part of your gift, could then turn around and be a guide for somebody else, having been there and done that, to be able to help somebody else have their own breakthroughs? Could you forgive yourself? When I posed those questions to myself, I felt an immediate shift, and it's my wish for you that these two questions may create a shift for you as well, to open your heart to greater forgiveness and compassion.
It's beautiful. Thank you. It's very, very beautiful. Thank you so much for that, Lorraine. We're going to have Lorraine guide us through a oneness blessing before we close this segment.
Beautiful. A oneness blessing is an energy transmission of divine grace. All you need to do is just be open to receive. And I'll speak again when the energy transmission is complete. I'm just going to send that now. And just take a few deep breaths and just allow that beautiful energy to integrate within your body.
Thank you all. I hope you felt that. We both were sending you energy of love. We're both energy healers, so this was really beautiful. I was sending it as well as she was with her. Thank you for joining us for this segment, and our credits are on at the end. Thank you, Lorraine, so much. This was an amazing pleasure.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me. I had a blast.
Me too. And we'll see you all in the next segment. Bye.